Today I'm going to show you how to make two different versions of Vietnamese fried spring rolls. The filling will be the same, but the wrapper can vary. This one is made out of wheat flour, oil, salt, and water. The other one you can use is rice paper. This version is made with tapioca flour, rice flour, water, and salt, but no oil. Now you might be wondering, well, wait a minute, aren't spring rolls the same as fresh rolls? Well, actually no. The terms that are being used for spring rolls and fresh rolls can vary depending on who you talk to, but if you're talking about spring rolls, usually these are fried. So a fried spring roll could consist of this type of wrapper or the flour wrapper. And if you're talking about fresh rolls, also known as summer rolls or salad rolls sometimes, those are usually made with this type of rice paper, and it's rolled with shrimp or pork, along with some fresh herbs and vermicelli noodles. If you're unsure which wrapper to use, the type of wrapper depends on what your preference is. So if you're using the rice paper wrapper to deep fry your spring rolls, it will have a crispy texture. However, because it's made with rice flour and tapioca flour, it will turn into more of a chewy spring roll rather than a crispy one. Whereas for the flour wrapper, it will stay crispy for a while. If you're serving this to your guests and you prefer to have more of a crispy texture that lasts for a while, I do recommend you use the flour wrappers. Another key point in keeping your fried spring rolls really crispy is to reduce the moisture in your filling. Every household has their own version for a spring roll filling. This is the version that I've made for many years now, and this was taught to me by my mom. Follow along with my video until the end and I will show you how to do all of that. Begin with taking your wrapper out of the freezer. Take a hand towel, wrap it in a hand towel, and let it sit on your counter to thaw while you work on your filling. If you're using rice paper, simply cut the package open and have it sitting on top of the package, ready to go. Sliced black and white fungus, which is basically just a type of mushroom, an Asian mushroom. Soak it in lukewarm water, just enough to cover them. The next thing for you to soak are vermicelli noodles. I usually buy the kind that is wrapped in this pink netting. And if you look on the package, it says that the ingredients are potato starch, tapioca starch, mung bean starch, and water. What I like about them is that they're very thin enough for you to add to your filling in order to mix it and roll it into your spring roll. Cover it with just enough lukewarm water to cover the surface. Let that sit for about 10 minutes. Along with the mushrooms, and then drain both the fungus and the noodles. Now that it's been 10 minutes, this is what the noodles look like. You just give them a few snips to make them a little shorter and easier to roll within your filling. My preference is to use white Spanish onions because they're sweeter in flavor, but if you can't find them, you can use yellow cooking onions just as fine. Because this is fairly large, I'm going to use half of it. Leave the root on before you slice it so that it doesn't burn your eyes as much. Then chuck the root. No tears until you cut the root off. I start my carrots with a medium size. The key to crispy spring rolls is to reduce the moisture in your filling. So what we're going to do is squeeze the water content out of these shredded carrots. Next, we're going to use a jicama. If you don't know what it is, it's a root vegetable that is grown mainly in Mexico and Central America. And the comparison to a jicama is like a potato, but with fewer carbs, but high in fiber. We're not going to use this whole thing, so I'm going to use about a quarter of it. Once it's shredded, also squeeze out the water content for your jicama. Next, we're going to use a taro. Usually, they're available in different sizes. This happens to be a big one, but I'm only going to use about a quarter of it. If you don't know what it looks like, usually it has these little purple lines within the taro. Then use the large shredder for this to shred the taro. If you can't find taro at your local Asian grocery store, you can substitute it with either sweet potato or even a yellow potato. But just be careful in the amount that you use because you don't want to add to the water content in your filling. Taro is usually dense, does not have a lot of water content, and I do recommend you try to find it to use it in your filling. Now it's time to mix. Lean or medium ground pork, add your taro, jicama, Chinese vermicelli noodles, sliced fungus, also known as the Asian mushrooms, shredded carrots, diced white onions, kosher salt, sugar, MSG. Now some of you may not like MSG, so you can skip it entirely if you like. For me, I prefer a little bit of MSG in my spring rolls. Ground black pepper, 1 large egg to bind everything together. Make sure you knead it together until it's all evenly distributed. Typically when I make spring rolls, I make about 300 or 400 at a time, but I've cut down the recipe to make a smaller amount. Here's a little trick I do when I want to make sure that the seasoning I added into my filling is actually how I like it. Take a small bowl, small chunk of the filling, and microwave it for 30 seconds until it's fully cooked. Then taste it and see if you like the seasoning. If you need to adjust your seasoning, you can add a little bit more salt or sugar or pepper to your liking. I'm gonna taste this now and see how it turns out. Be right back. Here it is now. Time to taste it. It's perfect, but if you'd like to add a little bit more seasoning just to suit your taste, feel free to do so at this point before you start rolling. Now the key thing here is not to have them dry out. Use 2 wet paper towels. Place them on top of your wrappers while you work. Gently pull apart your spring roll wrapper. It should be soft and thawed out and a little bit pliable. Place the wrapper like a kite directly in front of you. Scoop about 1.5 tablespoons of the filling and add it to the center of your wrapper. With your fork or finger, shape the filling into a 4-inch log. Then gently lift the bottom corner up and over the filling, roll it back slightly and press down on the left and right side with your finger. Apply an egg wash to the top left and right edge of the wrapper using a small pastry brush or your finger. Then fold the right and left side towards the center like an envelope. Gently tuck in the filling while you roll the spring roll upwards to seal the top edge of the wrapper. Remember to cover your spring rolls with a clean hand towel while you work. If you plan to freeze uncooked spring rolls, place them a 1/2 inch apart on a tray. Leave them uncovered and put the tray in your freezer for 20 minutes or until the rolls have started to harden. Then immediately transfer them to a plastic Ziploc bag that is freezer friendly. You can keep spring rolls frozen up to 6 months. Instead of freezing, if you plan to fry them right away, you can keep them covered with your hand towel until you're ready to deep fry. Now let me show you how to roll with the rice paper. Dip it into cold water or even cold beer for added flavor. Twirl it around until it's fully covered with the water. Then lay it flat on your work surface. The reason we're dipping the rice paper in cold water is to slow down the rate at which it softens. If it softens too quickly, it's too pliable, and as you start rolling, the paper may start to tear. Since rice paper is larger in size, scoop 2 tablespoons of the filling and add it to the center of the wrapper. Use your finger or fork to shape the filling into a 4.5 inch log. Now you want to carefully lift and fold the rice paper bottom up over the filling. Fold the right and left side towards the center like an envelope. Gently tuck in the filling while you roll the spring roll upwards to seal the top edge of the wrapper. While you work on your spring rolls, place the rolls a 1/2 inch apart on a non-stick tray to prevent them from sticking. Unlike the flour wrappers, cover the rice paper spring rolls with dampened paper towels to prevent them from drying out. I don't recommend you freeze these rolls as the texture may change due to the water content in the wrapper and in the filling. Add around 2 to 3 inches of cooking oil to your Dutch oven. Neutral oil such as peanut, canola, or corn oil is best for frying because of its high smoke point. Heat your oil on medium heat until it reaches 350 degrees Fahrenheit. You can use a wooden chopstick if you don't have a food thermometer to check the temperature. Just dip the chopstick into the oil, and if you see bubbles forming around it, your oil is ready. Let's deep fry the flour wrapped spring rolls first. Carefully drop in about 10 to 12 rolls depending on the size of your pot. Fry your rolls in batches
and do not overcrowd your Dutch oven since that may prevent the rolls from crisping up. If you're frying the rolls freshly made, adjust the heat between medium and medium-high to retain the temperature at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you're frying frozen spring rolls, make sure to increase the heat to high every time you add a new batch of frozen rolls and use a lid to prevent splatter. Then turn the heat down to medium to maintain the temperature at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. You will know they are done frying when you hear less sizzling or bubbling and the spring rolls float on the oiled surface. They also take on this beautiful, crispy golden brown color. Carefully remove them with wooden chopsticks or a mesh strainer and cool spring rolls on a wire rack for maximum crispiness. Now I will show you how to fry rice paper spring rolls. Add one roll at a time to the oil and use a wooden chopstick to separate them in between additions to keep them separated. The rolls will take on a crispy, bubble texture with some brown spots. They will not turn as golden brown as the flour-wrapped spring rolls. Listen for the sizzling to subside to know when they're done. If you want to check the internal temperature, pork spring rolls are done when they have reached 150 degrees Fahrenheit. There you have it, 2 versions of spring rolls with 1 type of filling. They can be enjoyed as a standalone snack with a dipping sauce of your choice such as sweet chili sauce or nukewarm. You can also make a whole meal by serving spring rolls with lettuce, sliced cucumber, mint, Thai basil, and cooked rice vermicelli noodles. It's an easy and refreshing meal that you can enjoy on a weeknight. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, comment down below, and be sure to subscribe. See you in my next video.